And now, welcome to our annual March Madness show, a production of the Colin McEnroe Show, Connecticut Public, and Contreras Quality Productions. Every year we get together to try to figure out how not to figure out March Madness college basketball. And now, let's meet our exciting panel for the day, very similar to the panels we've had on other days like this one. Paid $250,000 for that fanfare. I really should use it more often, actually.
Worth every penny.
Yeah, absolutely. Actually, we didn't. That was by... I want to talk to Craig Wedren sometime. We've been using this fanfare of his since 2010. All right, so let me just tell you, but I've never, I assume we pay. I don't know. Anyway, let's talk about the show today. Every year we do talk about March Madness. Jonathan McNichol is saying 2010 is in fact when we started doing this. There was one year where instead of basketball, we did a bracket for the state bird of Connecticut. Although in fairness, because I went back and looked at that bracket, and Sue Bird was one of the people on the bracket. I mean, everybody else was a bird except my dog Ralph. But that was an aberration. Usually we try to talk about basketball, not in a very super basketball-y way. But here to do it once again today, Bill Curry playing the part of Bill Curry, Julia Pistell, founding member of Sea Tea Improv, among the multitude of other things she does, including occasionally produce this show, episodes of this show. Look for her very exciting Rasputin show coming up sometime in the weeks ahead. Frankie Graziano is a reporter for Connecticut Public. They're all here in the first segment. In the second segment, you will meet, as part of our ongoing commitment to featuring one, and we don't mean this pejoratively at all. You could get the wrong idea. But our commitment to featuring one somewhat obscure college that happens to be in the draw. And this year it will be St. Peter's University. We will talk to the president of St. Peter's University. This all kind of started with Wofford. Wofford used to kind of make the draw every time. And so we had the president of Wofford on like 6 times in a row or something. Anyway, a lot of stuff is happening. It's all very exciting. But nothing is more exciting, really, in life, actually, than the moment when Julia Pistell unveils the method she is using to handicap or otherwise predict the outcomes of the games. It's never the same thing. She changes it up every year. It's never a particularly prudent way for you to bet on games, assuming that you're committed to winning money when you bet. But it's time to do that. Julia, what have you got for us this year?
Oh, my God. Well, first of all, I can't believe I've been doing this for so many years. This started as a one-off joke about how little I know about basketball. And I don't think I've watched a single basketball game in the 12 years since we begun. So I'm sticking to the theme. Although this year I was saying to Bill, my back was against the wall. I had no ideas. And then I came up with what I'm very excited about. We are going fight song to fight song this year. Everybody, I looked up 68 fight songs. I listened to them. I read their lyrics. I went completely down the rabbit hole, and it's going to be wild.
Are you okay after doing that? I mean, are you like lightheaded at all? Or
honestly, no. I had no idea what I was getting into. But it was fun. It was fun.
Well, even though I can tell Bill and Frankie are champing at the bit to get in here and actually talk about basketball, I think we need to sort of like spend a moment or two with this. So, Kat, let's try 01. This is the Ohio State fight song, better known as Buckeye Battle Cry. You know what that sounds like to me? It sounds like a fight song. I mean,
Yeah, and you know why?
Yeah.
Because they are almost all sound identical.
Right.
Which is a major problem I ran into during my deep research.
Bill, did you have something you wanted to say?
Every one of them perfectly suitable for a military parade.
Right. And so now theoretically we could, although we can't because we don't have it, but I think the Ohio State Buckeyes are playing the Loyola Ramblers in the first round. We could conceivably have played their fight song too. We're going to do that with Yale and Purdue a little bit later. But just in terms of helping you pick a winner, Julia, because obviously there's another level of ratiocination that goes along with that. And I'm just sort of wondering, what do you do once you've heard the fight songs in question?
Yeah. So, okay. There's a lot of elements to this. And as always, I'd like to remind our listeners that I spent an average of 4 minutes per school. So we're going to be riddled with errors and just wild swinging assumptions on my part. But
136 minutes of your life you'll never get back. But anyway, continue.
Fight songs they're really interesting because they started, they're a tradition around the world, but they are a really strange little piece of Americana. They all have some essential elements, and those include nonsense syllables, sometimes a lot of spelling or clapping. There's a lot of war imagery and, fight kind of stuff going on. And then, of course, there's like the musical analysis, which I'm not smart enough about music to do, but I gave it a shot in certain places. So in this case, I really like Buckeye Battle Cry because that snare at the beginning is very exciting. It's very dramatic. And I also looked up all of the lyrics to all these songs. So you might not always hear them. And in a lot of cases, you wouldn't even know them because that's not how they're played at the games. But to me, they count. So for example, Buckeye Battle Cry. Here are some lines from it. In old Ohio, there's a team that's known throughout the land. 11 warriors, brave and bold, whose fame will ever stand. So those are the first couple lines. They were written by a vaudeville performer. And honestly, that sounds pretty boring, but compared to other fight songs, that's extremely descriptive. So big points for me.
Yeah,
for example, Loyola has
Go ahead.
You, rah, rah, cheer for alma mater. Boo, boring. So Ohio State took this one for me.
All right. Yeah. No, that seems like a very reasonable choice. I did want to just point out that, Julia talked about nonsense syllables, which I think is really true. A lot of these fight songs do have nonsense syllables. And this is compounded by the fact that the people singing the fight songs are not always sober. And so to give you a sense of what that can turn into, here are some fans of the Richmond Spiders, the University of Richmond Spiders. They're called the Peanut Group. They are about to sing Rah, Rah for Richmond, and they are very drunk.
Richmond, rah, rah for Richmond, Richmond, rah, rah for Richmond, rah, rah, rah.
It doesn't get a lot better. I think we could. Well, we'll come back to this. We'll come back to all of this.
Yeah.
Because
That is the song to sing if you're drunk.
Yeah, it's a good song to sing if you're drunk, right?
Yeah,
you
just
just
happen to be drunk.
Yeah.
Get the music and lyrics to that.
Right. It's like, if you're drunk, you don't want to tackle, I'm not getting married from Company by Sondheim. Yeah, you want to do rah, 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 rah.
Speak for yourself.
Don't do karaoke with Julia Pistell. All right, so let's bring in one of our other very exciting features. Somebody actually knows quite a bit about sports and basketball in particular, and that would be Frankie Graziano. But, Kat, I think it's time to unveil the sounder.
Frankie.
No, do it again.
After Frankie.
There, it's good. Try it one more time. Does it have to reset? Does it have to reload?
After Frankie.
There we go. AccuFrankie Frankie sounds good. All right, so...
Cat's drunk too. It's okay.
That's right, yeah. Okay.
I've come to life.
Yeah, you have come to life. Do you get excited when you hear your sounder? I know the first time we did it.
I was going to be depressed if the pandemic took that away.
Yeah.
I was going to be upset.
The first time we did it, you were kind of like on a phone connection. I think you were at the Civic Center or something,
Yes.
the XL Center, and you thought that the sounder was saying F you, Frankie.
F you, Frankie.
Yeah, which is not. We would never say that. You know,
It's okay if you did. I just couldn't hear it. That's what it
we
sounded
would
like.
never. And didn't like somebody like text you?
Yeah,
and say,
somebody called me and said they're saying "f you" on the radio. I said that's not the first time they're saying that on the radio.
F you, Frankie.
See, that's I don't know how your friend must have been drunk too. So I don't know. Where do you want to start? I guess we should start with some of the local teams. And I know you and Bill want to talk a little bit about women's basketball. Frankie, I was struck by, I don't really pay any attention to this most of the time, but I was struck by looking at the AP All-America women's teams. They have 3 decks of them, and for some reason or other, there's 6 in the first team. I guess they couldn't make up their minds or something. But there's nobody from the UConn women's team. That must have never happened before for many
You
years.
know, it's different. This is a different UConn year because there were so many injuries on the team. I mean, Kristen Williams has been pretty much healthy the whole year, but I mean, she's the snub, I guess, if you were to look at it this way, the senior who was the most outstanding tournament player in the Big East. But you didn't have Paige Beckers all year. AZ Fudd, the new freshman phenom, didn't get to play. Just a ton of injuries, and they're kind of rounding into form, and I guess that's going to be a good thing for UConn and bad for their opponents coming up here.
You know, Frankie sounds a little bit different from a lot of our guests. It's because this is the first time McPants loves numbers and stuff, but this is the first time in like 700 and something days that I have had somebody on the show with me who's in a studio right next door. We're separated by, virus-proof glass, but Frankie is like here in the studio.
Looking right at you.
Yeah, I have not talked to
Frankie.
not talked to anybody on anything other than a Zoom connection or anything better than a Zoom connection since we're in 2 years, more than 2 years. So another legit. Real, honest to Pete. Well, actually, we should stay with the women's game for a second because, Bill Curry, I know you like to talk about the women's game too. Despite having ruined the greatest women's basketball game in the history of women's basketball for me with your behavior.
Which one was this? Which game was this?
Yeah. Colin and I were in middle school at the time. Go ahead.
Well, it
Go
was
ahead,
like this.
But feel free to trot this old chestnut out.
Well, it was like this really famous game, which was UConn versus, I don't know what year it was.
Notre Dame.
Yeah, I knew that part. It was UConn versus Notre Dame. Didn't Jeff Goldberg write a whole book about it? How it's like this is the greatest basketball game or women's basketball game ever played or something. But anyway, we're sitting there in the field house watching this game, and he becomes obsessed in a very unwholesome and borderline creepy way with Kelly Schumacher, to the point where like all he can think of is, why aren't they throwing the ball at Kelly? Kelly's open. Why aren't they? Why is Kelly going to the bench? Why is he taking her out of the game? Put Kelly back out on the court. It was like that for like 2 hours, basically. And meanwhile, this incredible game was happening. And I was just sort of apologizing to people around us, saying, we're going to get him into a program. He's not always going to be like this.
Just as a portal into Colin's extraordinarily creative imagination, let me just review the actual facts. It won't take 10 seconds. So we're at this game. It's Notre Dame. It is one of the greatest games I ever saw.
2011, I'm being told.
Yeah, not middle school.
And they did take Kelly Schumacher out of the game, and Notre Dame had a great center, and the tide turned in Notre Dame's favor. And I made the mistake of saying probably twice, not shouting, but saying to Colin, they should put her back in the game, get her back in the game, which they did, and things got better. That's the whole thing. And now it's 11 years later, and this propaganda is still being spewed.
So you're going to say that I and other spectators did not have to restrain you from running out onto the court.
Yeah.
That's your story now, that didn't happen?
Well, that's true, but that's when I was running up to attack a referee.
All right. Okay, that might have been different.
It's a different part of the story.
Oh, can we talk about that? So, Frankie, this is actually a trend. It's like maybe everybody got Bill Curry syndrome or something, because like the coaches this year, not on the women's side so much, but on the men's side, the coaches seem kind of out of control.
Yeah, psychotic, I would say, borderline. You have the situation that everybody knows about with Juwan Howard. He kind of, I don't think they're calling it a punch. It was more like a swipe with the Michigan head coach after they lost by like 14 to them last month. The one I get to watch a lot when I go to UConn games is Dan Hurley. Like I'm just mystified every time I'm watching a UConn game because I'm looking down at the guy and he's just. It's almost like he could be a liability because he's a walking technical foul. He got kicked out of the big game against Villanova. You got an honorable mention for the angriest coach of all time, and Mike Krzyzewski. He's He's going away. This is his last tournament. So I'm just always finding myself looking at the sidelines when I'm watching games in college basketball.
Right. Actually, of course, when Jim Calhoun was coaching UConn, it was often something of an education for the little ears of children who are sitting near the bench.
Hurley's like the young Calhoun.
He's like, okay.
Yeah, but with Calhoun though, he's got like that presence about him where you just don't want to test him. You're not going to laugh at him if he's upset or anything like that. You're more apt to listen. I chuckle a little bit at some of these newer coaches.
Yeah, we should do it.
Frankie.
we should say about Juwan Howard too. I mean, the reason that he hit or slapped the Michigan coach was because the Michigan coach had called a timeout. That was what he was enraged by. The game was a little bit out of reach. The guy had like his bench out on the floor because he'd already had the game won. But then they were like they were full court press or something. He thought maybe I'll call a timeout and just tell my scrubs what to do about that. And that's what flipped Juwan Howard.
Juwan Howard's 6'11". I want nothing to do with that.
Right. So that's not good. We approve of good sportsmanship here. So, Frankie, another thing we should just talk a little bit about is the role of betting in all this. Now, a lot of people are going to take Julia Pistell's fight song thing, and they're going to get online or whatever, and they're going to make some bets. And there's nothing wrong with that, but there is a way it seems to have saturated the game a little bit.
Well, first of all, I always got to say when we're covering these betting stories, there's a way to help, and you can call the Connecticut Council on Problem Gambling. Go to ccpg.org to find out more about that. Not nearly a sponsorship, but I talk about sports betting too much, and I feel like I'm starting to give people habits. But sports betting, the big events that we've seen, obviously, are NFL games. That's really a big draw. The biggest draw is the Super Bowl. That was supposed to have like $7.6 billion wagered on it. But the state of Connecticut didn't make so much money on that because it was one NFL game. The month before, they actually made a ton of money off of all of the NFL playoff games in January. So you're having a little bit of a challenge right now in terms of making money. You need something else to step in for football. I guess what better than March Madness? So all these games, people being unproductive at work like us, look at us talking about basketball during work. I guess maybe that can help the state's bottom line a little bit and help them make money. And, it's not just pools and March Madness pools and square pools and all of that nowadays. Now people are actually going to DraftKings, FanDuel, Sugar House to make bets on actual games and spreads.
I thought Sugar House was a dating site. That's how.
Frankie.
You should have.
That's where you started in the pandemic. That's your dating app, Sugar House.
Sugar House. So, now I've lost my train of thought. So, we should just say one or two other things about Mike Krzyzewski, and he's of course been the coach of Duke since the 1840s, and this is his last year. Probably Gonzaga will end his coaching career. That's if you sort of look at how the brackets work out and stuff like that. If Duke wins a few games at the beginning, they'll get crushed by Gonzaga. But I'm sure Bill Curry, during that time, Coach K, I think he gets credit for maintaining the punchability of Duke. There's just sort of a way in which no matter who's on the court, you want Juwan Howard to go out there and punch some of them.
In no place is this more true than in Connecticut. He is a universally reviled figure outside of North Carolina, but in Connecticut, he really, was the Darth Vader Voldemort figure when the two teams were cresting in the late '90s and early 2000s and meeting each other, of course, for the famous upset in 1999, UConn's first national championship. And we really hate him. His retirement. I was just thinking about it the last couple of days that he's almost the last. Maybe Jim Boeheim is the exception, but for your older listeners who actually follow basketball, so for you four people, there was this great John Thompson at Georgetown, Jim Calhoun at UConn, Raleigh Massimino, Lou Carnesecca. There were these colorful coaches who built the Big East, who were in a kind of golden age of basketball, college basketball, of Magic versus Bird in onto the 80s and 90s. And the game has changed. And one of the things about Krzyzewski is that he changed with it in a lot of ways. We've seen the one and done players who just sort of used college for a chance to profile for the pros. This year, we have two new leagues that actually pay high school students up to $100,000 a year to leave high school and play basketball. We have the Supreme Court ruling on student compensation for playing. the game itself is more and more, as it has for a long time, but following the pro model. It's a much more open game, a lot more threes, a lot more floor spacing, a lot more star-driven basketball. And so I look at Krzyzewski, who's managed to succeed in the old system, which was a different kind of game played under very different rules, and into this new age where I think he probably is likely to go down in that Elite Eight game against Gonzaga, but it would be a pretty noble finish for him actually at the end of his career.
Right. We're gonna have to move.
It's a reminder that the game has changed.
We do have to move on because we have the president of one of our favorite colleges, St. Peter's University, who's about to join us. I do want to say that one of the big changes that Bill's talking about that you can see, the University of Texas right now, they don't even have a basketball coach. They have 5 guys from Goldman Sachs who now just run the team. And they don't even hire a basketball coach. Okay, before we get to the president of St. Peter's University, let's go out with one more of Julia's fascinating ways of predicting these games, and that is by pitting one fight song against another. On Friday at 2 p.m., Purdue will play Yale University. So this is 05, Kat. Let's hear Purdue's fight song. It has words too, but we don't have time to get to them. And we'll go out of this segment with the Yale fight song. For people who don't know, it's written by Cole Porter. I'm not making that up. And it goes, Bulldog, Bulldog, bow, wow, wow, Eli Yale. Cole Porter was just getting started at that point. I mean, Night and Day would come a couple of weeks after that. I think he wrote Night and Day. So Julia, how would you project this one?
Yeah, this is a good one actually because they're both pretty cheesy. So it's a fair fight. But I gave it to Purdue. I thought Purdue's was really nostalgic. So the lyrics are, "May our hearts with love be yearning for the scenes of old Purdue. Fondest hopes and aims e'er finding while we sang of days of yore." And while that is very collegiate, early 20s,
Stephen Foster kind of feel.
Well, most of these are basically about breaking somebody else's neck. So I like the gentle tone of the Purdue one. The Bow Wow Wow one I also thought was really fun, but ultimately just stupid. So a close matchup for me, but I gave it to Purdue.
All right. That's probably one of Julia's predictions that you probably could successfully put money on. I would expect Purdue to win to cover the spread. In fact, they wrote a new lyric to the fight song, which is, "We have the tallest center in this tournament. He's 7'4". Your tallest guy is 6'7".
Well, actually, Colin, one more thing. I know we're going to the break, but I was shocked to find, I think this is actually my most accurate method. The stronger teams also have better songs.
All right.
It's really, really interesting.
Is that backed up? Is that really backed up by science at this point, though? All right, we have to take a break here. We're going to go out of this segment with the Yale fight song. We'll come back with the president of a university that we are coming to know and love, one of the little schools in this draw.
Bulldog, wow, wow, wow. Our team can never fail. When the sons of Eli break through the line, that is the sign we hail. Bulldog, wow, wow, wow. Eli, yeah.
All right, so that is Io Pavo, I hope I'm saying that correctly, the fight song of St. Peter's University. And we are sung by St. Peter's University Alumni Glee Club, which includes the historian Will Durant, who went there. Actually, I don't know that he's in that Glee Club. And he's actually not with us anymore, but I think. So joining us now, I've sort of bungled this introduction in my usual charming way, is the president of St. Peter's University, Eugene J. Cornacchia. We are excited to have him here today. Welcome to our show, first of all, President Cornacchia.
Well, thank you. It's my pleasure to join you.
So this is a very small school. Undergraduates, what, a little bit over 2,000?
Correct.
And is this the first time the Peacocks, we should say the Peacocks, this is the first time the Peacocks have played in the big draw, the big dance?
Oh, no. My goodness. 2011, I remember it very vividly. Very exciting time. We went to Chicago for that one and went up against Purdue. Gave them a run for their money.
Right. So I'm being told 91, 95, 2011, and 2022.
Correct. Yes.
And is it the only team that you're aware of that is known as the Peacocks? Like the only, Division One. I think you might be the only Division One Peacocks.
Oh, yes, absolutely.
Yeah. And it has something to do with the resurrection, too. There's a way in which the peacock is connected to that. Am I correct?
Absolutely. Yeah. The then college actually had to close during World War I because there were no men anymore available. We were all men at that point. And so it was coming out of that we adopted the peacock really as our mascot.
All right, so obviously we're here today to talk about a small group of people on your campus who really distinguished themselves in a very exciting way, a club of people who brought great honor and distinction to St. Peter's. Kat, this is B1. Let's hear from them. Or not. There's no B1? All right, well, then we will forget about that then. Okay, so I just want to ask, because you are a small school, first of all, we should say you're playing someplace called Kentucky. What have they ever done? Have they ever won anything? I'm not aware.
Yeah, they're a little bit bigger than we are,
Yeah. So, but what's the mood like on campus? It's got to be kind of a morale booster, particularly, here we are, 2 years into a pandemic. I'm on a campus 1 day a week these days. I know what that's sort of done to I can see a little bit of what that's done to student morale. Nothing great. So what is this doing for student morale?
It has jazzed up the entire campus community. It's interesting that with COVID shut down last year, we were really competitive. And then, of course, everything just came to a grinding halt. And so this year, we've got what we believed we deserved in the past. And it's especially important this year to us because we now have this beautiful new basketball arena that we've created with a beautiful Hall of Fame. And so we win our title now and take it to the NCAA. It's really exciting for the entire community.
So besides basketball, what would you want people to know about St. Peter's?
Oh, what I would want people to know about St. Peter's. So we're a Jesuit university, one of 27 Jesuit colleges and universities in the United States, which, as I'm sure you know, are institutions focused on high quality teaching and learning and scholarship. We're not really that small because in total we have a little over 3,000 students because we have almost 1,000 graduate students at the university in addition. We're an urban school, right? We're in Jersey City, one of the most dynamic, fast-growing metropolitan areas in the United States, which has seen an amazing renaissance and one that started at the waterfront and now is right there in our neighborhood. And we are a very diverse university as well. We are 50% Hispanic, we're 20% African American, and 8% Asian. It is really a microcosm of the United States.
We have with us one of our regular basketball panelists, Bill Curry, who, if he can ever complete the celibacy requirement, would be a Jesuit priest. It's the only thing that's really kind of held him back from being a Jesuit priest. So, Bill, I'm sure you have a, well, don't even get me started. I'll tell you one thing. You couldn't prove it by Kelly Schumacher. All right. So perhaps you have a question or observation for the president of this fine Jesuit institution. We should say that Bill attended Georgetown undergraduate.
And at Northwest Catholic High School and St. Justin's Grammar School. And what I was thinking, listening to the fight song, is that is the only, not to cut into Julia's territory here, but that is the only borderline Gregorian chant fight song that I've ever heard. And my first suggestion would be to go all the way, just think of an actual Gregorian chant fight song. I think that would throw a lot of opponents off their game.
Not Providence, not the Providence Friars, probably, but other than that, yeah.
Well, I think Georgetown can handle it, but but I think it would be of great value. And it's amazing every year to see how many Jesuit schools are in this tournament.
That's right.
It actually goes back to Catholic schools and high schools and grammar schools in inner cities in the earlier part of this century did an enormous amount to foster basketball. I'd say it's mostly why Madison Square Garden got to be the Vatican City of college basketball, because there were such deep roots in that community and part of the outreach. And I just want to commend you. I didn't know many things about the university that you just said, but that diversity and that commitment reminds me of that early church commitment in those cities that connected it to the game.
So Julia,
so thank you.
Yeah, Julia, you had kind of an early moment of panic where it seemed like maybe St. Peter's didn't have a fight song, and I'm not really sure. I don't know. Is that a fight song, Julia?
Yeah. So okay. I mean, obviously Eugene can clarify here, but okay. There's some overall trends in fight songs that I have observed, and one is that several of these schools have very recently tasked a music department or a student to rewrite their fight song, in many cases to make it less racist or sexist, which is great. And in other cases, just because their old fight song was kind of tired and bad, and, they had a contest. And that is how it seems like most fight songs come to be. So I think that the Peacocks, it makes sense you guys are a small school because you probably don't have a giant band it's raring to play it at all times. But I think you could jazz up this fight song, and I think you would be in every March Madness tournament heretofore.
But I need to correct the record, though.
Yeah.
So that's really not our fight song.
Okay.
Right. That is a song that's near and dear to our alumni. It goes back a long time. We really don't have a fight song because we really don't need one. We're St. Peter's.
Oh, hey-oh.
Well, ask the president who they beat to get into the NCAA tournament.
Yes. Frankie is asking, who did you beat to get into the tournament?
We beat Monmouth.
At Quinnipiac University.
And Quinnipiac? Wow.
Yes. Monmouth.
Yeah. Well, they're in the same conference. They're in the same conference. So the bottom line is
game was with Monmouth.
Yeah, if you're from Connecticut, you might want to root against St. Peter's, I guess.
No.
Wow, Frankie.
No.
Wow, Frankie.
Yeah. No, not after the president has been on our show.
That's right.
This is how it works. We're all part of the same conference, so whoever wins, we support them.
That's right. They bring honor and glory to whatever conference that is.
Absolutely.
Yeah. All right. Well, listen, it's been Mac. That's right. Okay. It's been great to visit with you, and we certainly are rooting, if not necessarily wagering tremendous amounts of money on St. Peter's University in their battle against Kentucky in the first round. Thank you so much for joining us.
All right, great. Look for us on Saturday too.
All right, go Peacocks.
All right,
go Peacocks.
And that's faith.
Does anybody do a good peacock impersonation here? You'd think that I would have a peacock, but I didn't workshop it. I'm not ready. All right. So Eugene J. Cornacchia is the president of St. Peter's University. We'll be back with the rest of our gold ribbon panel or blue ribbon panel or whatever color they are, purple devil ribbon panel after this. All right, that is the Texas fight song. I feel like it sounds like something else, though. Ba 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 ba. It's like a Superman song or something. All right, so that's the Texas fight song. We went out of the previous segment with the Tennessee fight song. This is all because one of our panelists today, Julia Pistell, is using fight songs to make predictions on the brackets here in March Madness. The technical producer of our show today is, as usual, Kat Pastor, and Jonathan McPants is producing this particular episode, as he does every year. With us are Bill Curry and Julia Pistell. They're sort of the I don't know what to say, really, the Joe Buck and Troy Aikman of our March Madness show. And then also with us, get the sounder ready, Frankie Graziano, a.k.a. That's right, Acu Frankie, also with us. So, Julia.
Yes.
Maybe it's time, just so we don't miss it at the end, for you to say that as you've sort of run through all these fight songs, pitting one against the other, using your background in musicology to analyze them. I mean, how do you see the whole tournament kind of playing out?
Wow. Okay. So there is another category of fight song that I haven't mentioned yet, which is old-timey songs. I guess the Yale one counts as no, that was real fight song. Where a famous song in that area is turned into a fight song. So a couple of those are really good. Rocky Top is the Tennessee fight song, although that's a big cheat because like Dolly Parton has sung it, everybody's sung it. So Tennessee went really far for me. They made it to my Elite Eight. I also have to mention in this category is Wyoming's song Ragtime Cowboy Joe, which made it very, very far for me.
Actually, could we just maybe even pause there for a second? And we are going to actually play. Let's just play 03 there, Kat. That's the University of Wyoming fight song, Ragtime Cowboy Joe. We also have available, if we need it, Jimmy Stewart and Dean Martin singing that. Although, I feel like the Chipmunks did a version of it, too. Alvin and the Chipmunks. They did an excellent version. All right, so I'm sorry, I interrupted you in mid-thought.
But yeah, that's okay. I really love Ragtime Cowboy Joe because it has lyrics like, he's got a syncopated gator and you ought to hear the meter on the roar of his repeater, which is just amazing. Wow. That's a lot of fun. Yeah. And it goes on and on.
Try singing that when you're drunk.
Yeah. So here are my final four. Okay. My final four were Texas Tech. They have Fight Raiders Fight. And it's just a really good song. And it makes some big promises, which a lot of the fight songs are... they're really threat-based. They're like all about the opposing team and how you're going to destroy them. But Texas Tech makes... it's positive reinforcement. We'll praise your name, boost you to fame for the scarlet and the black. So they're really kind to their players, which I liked. So we had Texas Tech, Ragtime Cowboy Joe, that's Wyoming. And then, the Midwest division, I was very upset that A&M got knocked out, which I did learn one thing about basketball this year, and it was that. Because they have an amazing song called Hullabaloo Connect, which is just absolute nonsense and a great song. But in their absence, I took Kansas all the way to the Final Four with a fun Jayhawk song. But my ultimate winner of the entire tournament was Illinois has Oski Wow Wow, which is another absolute nonsense tune. And I learned that I love nonsense. So yeah, my finals were Oski Wow Wow versus Ragtime Cowboy Joe. And it was a lot of fun. I really recommend people go listen to these songs because they're really, really silly.
You've been working
Can I just make one observation, and that is that Julia, you should consider doing like one of those William Shatner spoken records. Just all these lyrics. I think it could be a real winner.
A Rocket Man.
I like it.
But with Henry Rollins.
No, I think Julia could do it.
Just Julia. Because we're big fans of the well, never mind. And so that's where it all ends for you. I just want to say that it's interesting to me that you worked in improv comedy for more than 15 years, I'm sure, and you just discovered you love nonsense.
Well, yeah, I guess I've discovered that that's my favorite of all the categories. Is just absolute bananas. words. Whereas I also love music, and I have to say, I have to give a shout out to UConn. UConn's song is very, very good, and I know Bill agrees with me there. Right, Bill?
Yes, I felt that UConn, if we did it by Julia's rules this year, actually did the tournament by Julia's rules, that's the one way that UConn could get to the Final Four.
Right. I can sing it for you.
Well, actually, we're going to play it at the end of the show.
Okay, there you go. You play it.
I'm not saying that you would wreck it if you sung it now. I'm not saying that. I'm not saying that either.
Yeah, no, it's a subtle implication.
So I also want to give Bill and Frankie maybe a little chance to perhaps indulge in similar acts of whimsy, or just talk a little bit about one or two of their favorite things about the tournament, or who they think is going to win. But I just wanted to say two things on a personal basis. One of them is one reason I was interested in the first segment about the Yale fight song versus the Purdue fight song is that in our family, my blended family, I'm a graduate of Yale University. My ex-wife's partner, Kent Jameson, it just bleeds Boilermaker Purdue madness. He's and in fact they played here in Hartford in the early parts of the draw a few years ago, and I got tickets so we could all go watch it together. And so it's this. I'm very comfortable with Purdue trouncing Yale, which I think is probably what's going to happen. But in fact, I couldn't. I know how sad Kent gets when the Boilermakers lose, and the Yale victory isn't worth it to me to have him be that sad. And then I want to mention my current favorite player. He plays for UAB. His name is Jelly Walker, and he's really good. And I like saying Jelly Walker. And obviously, Jelly Walkers were a weapon under development by the Empire. Darth Vader was very upset that they never materialized, because Jelly Walkers could have probably won the war against the Rebel Alliance. And Jelly Walker seems like a very nice young man. And there are now hoodies that you can get that are in his honor with a jelly jar dribbling a basketball. And I want one of those. All right, so that's all I need to say. So, Frankie, I don't know, mention a favorite player or your picks, or you have the floor for a few minutes to say whatever you want to say.
Well, first of all, I didn't go to Yale University. I went to the more modest University of Connecticut. But I picked, they're in UConn's bracket, and they're probably going to smoke UConn if they play them. I picked Gonzaga to win it all. They have some great tournament pedigree of late. They played in the championship last year, and they got these two twin towers that are 7 feet and 6'10" in Drew Timme, and also maybe the number one pick, Chet Holmgren. But I do like these two guards that they got at UCLA, Jaime Jaquez and Johnny Juzang. They went really far. They lost in a heartbreaker to Gonzaga last year. They can do some noise, and also they have this facial hair that's pretty cool. Jaime Jaquez has this like chin piece, and he wears the whole headband thing that you have. It's like a throwback. And Drew Timme, who plays for Gonzaga, has the mustache. So I don't know, Julie. Maybe that's in the future. You've probably done this already. Maybe you do something with facial hair, or maybe with octogenarians. You got Loyola Chicago's great Sister Jean. I got them in an upset. I got them playing Michigan in the round of 32 in an upset special at 10 against an 11. Maybe you got a Sister Jean bracket next year.
Yeah. Sister Jean doesn't actually play for that school. I just
No, she does.
Be clear. She does. Okay.
Sure?
Yeah. No, and I see Drew Timme's facial hair, I would say, is very kind of auxiliary Boba Fett, kind of, sort of futuristic Western look to it. He looks like he should be a gunslinger, but with some kind of, particle beam weapon or something.
It's kind of like me when I started growing facial hair like 15 years ago.
It's so much like you, I can't even wrap my mind around how much it is like you. All right, so Bill Curry, you have the floor for a few minutes.
Well, I just want to say that, first of all, I kind of go with Frankie, except I'll say that one of two Jesuit schools is likely to win it all, either Gonzaga or St. Peter's.
You got to make up for me saying bad things about St. Peter's earlier.
Yeah, I'm just trying to be nice, Frankie. And just in case he's still listening. But Gonzaga is. I talked earlier about how the game has changed and it imitates the pro game, and you got step back threes and you got a star driven system. And then you watch Gonzaga, and if you're an old style basketball purist, they play the game the old way and really, really well. And the second thing I want to say about it is that they're in the West as we are. And the dream outcome here, not a prediction, just a kind of pleasant afternoon fantasy, would be Connecticut making it over a very tough New Mexico State tonight at 6:50 on your local station, and then it has to face Arkansas,
Yeah.
which is also tough team.
If Arkansas
And,
actually doesn't Arkansas have to get past the Vermont Catamounts?
Yeah, they do.
Yes, they do, and it's tough. Vermont, of course, wishes that that instead of Vermont, Bennington had made it out of that tough Vermont region.
Yeah, but listen to this, guys. I mean, these are fighting words.
Okay.
High o'er the water of Lake Champlain was the green and gold, the emblem aspiring to wondrous fame. Come on, how can they?
Okay, well,
And let me just
say on that basis, I've learned my lesson from the time that Julia's bracket beat mine when I did mine based on who I thought would win, and she did hers based on which mascot could eat the other school's mascot. And that's why I've always accused her of cheating. But I'll switch then. I'll go with Vermont over Arkansas. But in any case, we'd have to beat those. We'd have to win those two tough games, and then we would face in the Sweet 16 Gonzaga
In San Francisco.
Yeah, and that's right, because we're in the West, because we're UConn, and we'd have to face Gonzaga. And if we won that game, it would be the second greatest upset in the history of UConn sports. After that time, we beat Duke. And if we did win that game and Duke made it past Texas Tech, we could be confronting Coach K for one last time in the Elite Eight. Now, is that going to happen? I don't have a prediction, but wouldn't that be lovely?
Right. I just want to say one thing. I'm just going to sound like Bill Curry here, or Frankie or something, like somebody who knows something about basketball, which I definitely don't. But Vermont is an interesting school because they play in like the maple syrup conference or something. I don't know what it's called. It's something like that. Yeah. It's not theoretically.
They founded Middlebury.
Right. It's not theoretically that competitive a conference. However, I don't know why I know this, but they won their conference tournament game this year by 39 points, which is, I think, the biggest margin for a victory in a Division I basketball tournament since 1989. And when you win your tournament game by 39 points, it kind of suggests you're a little bit better than your conference, like, better than the.
Down.
They smoked UMBC.
I follow your line of thinking here, but they're going down. By the way, it reminds me that the UConn women won their tournament by 30 points. That was over Villanova, a team that was their last defeat 10 games back by 3. And they look to really possibly put together a really fine team after a year of such injury and adversity. And they've got a road that goes through Stores and Bridgeport straight to the Final Four. I'll bet they make it, and I'll bet they're highly competitive when they get there. Hats off to Gino once again.
Yeah, I was there. I covered that game. They had 9 deep in that tournament. At least 9 players playing 15 minutes each. They're very deep.
Wow.
So we're gonna
compare that to the early season, Frankie. That's amazing.
We're gonna have to wrap up there. I do want to just quickly point people, if they want, towards a kind of a lovely story. University of San Francisco, of course, the college at one point of Bill Russell, has on its roster a center from Ukraine and 2 teammates who are from Belarus, and they have banded together and put out a kind of a video pleading stop the war. Belarus, obviously, nominally on the side of Russia in this conflict. So, Julia, we're gonna end with the UConn fight song. You got like 10 seconds to tell us anything you want us to be thinking about while we're listening to the UConn fight song.
Oh gosh, rhythm, spelling, it's got it all. I'll say this. This is the one I know.
I hate those fight songs that are riddled with misspelling, particularly the University of Richmond one where they're just so drunk they can't spell Richmond. All right, here's the song. Thanks to all of our wonderful panelists.